Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's do some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurvavasvaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Asto Ma Sadgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sehna Vavatu, Sehna Bhunaktu, Seviryam Karvave, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvishave. Om Shanti 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 Om. So last week, we started looking at these 15 steps, or you can call it a program of sadhana, spiritual practice. And out of 15, 8 of them are from Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. And through a little self-control of the sense organs and renunciation of the desires for sense indulgence, mind does get controlled. Mind becomes silent, becomes quiet, and at that time, the space-time concepts, they become harmless. Then with the right posture, we learn to hold the body steady. We can fix our gaze. All the prans, they get controlled. Then we can see that this wandering nature of the mind, to control it becomes very easy. Concentration becomes natural. Contemplation and total absorption, they become effortless and spontaneous. So this is the program he gave it to us. So we only saw the terms, the 15 terms. Let me repeat those again. And then in the following verses, he's telling us the deeper meaning of these terms also, so that we can practice it. These great saints, the gurus, they can sure give us the program. But no matter how good the program is, ultimately we have to practice to get the full benefit. So these 15 steps are yam, the niyam, त्याग, मौन, देश, काल, आसन, मूल बंध, देह साम्य, दृढ़ स्थिति, प्राण संयमन, प्रत्याहार, धारणा, ध्यान, and samadhi. Altogether 15. So I'm sure you all of you have noted down the verses I sent you yesterday. So the very first verse is about the yama. Let's look at it in Sanskrit first. Sarvam Brahm iti vigyanat indriye sanyama yama iti ayam samproktaha abhyesaniha muhu muhu. Sarvam means all. Brahm, truth. Iti vigyanat, from such knowledge. Indriye gram sanyamaha, the restraint of all the senses. Yamaha iti, as Yam. Ayam means this. Samproktaha is rightly called. Abhyasaniya should be practiced, like abhyas. Muhu, muhu, repeatedly. That means again and again. It's not just one time or one day or 1 month or 1 year. Again and again. By the direct knowledge that all this is Brahma. To gain a life of easy restraint of all the senses is rightly called Yam. This should be practiced again and again. We try to control our senses, but sense control is not possible as long as we live in our present state of consciousness. So in our present state, our senses, they are hungry. And that hunger is very natural. But not to get charmed by the sense objects would be almost unnatural, actually. But when the awareness of the oneself comes in that state of Godhood, sense organs cannot seek sense object passionately. Because the self, in the self, there are neither objects nor organs of perceptions. So first we have to appreciate intellectually this. This has been insisted in the scriptures. All this is Brahma. We have to reflect upon it. And then sincerely we try to turn our attention to the seat of this sacred life in our own heart. So that means we have to turn our attention away from the sense world. So this natural sense control that is effortlessly gained by a seeker when he practices, when he is turning his attention towards the divine, that is true Yama. We are familiar with the Patanjali's 5 divisions of Yama. Ahimsa, Satya, Aste, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. These are automatically and effortlessly gained when we come to accept this deep knowledge that all of this is Brahma. When we see the Brahma in the other person, how can we hurt somebody? Ahimsa. When we see all is Brahma, the reality is Brahma, how can we lie? How can we steal? Why would we hoard? Because ahimsa means non-killing, non-hurting. We cannot hurt if we see the Brahma. Satya means truthfulness. Asteya means non-stealing. Brahmacharya, seeing the Brahma everywhere. Brahmacharya. And aparigraha, non-holding, non-greed. So remember that. So he's telling us to live in this level of self-consciousness. So let me repeat the definition again. By the direct knowledge that all this is Brahma, to gain a life of easy restraint of all the senses is rightly called yam. Got to just remember this constantly. All this is Brahma. He says this should be practiced again and again. Whether you want to practice it during your prayers, meditation, when you eat food, when you take a bath, when you go for a walk, whatever time, again and again, remember all this is Brahma. The yam, to practice yam will be easier. Then in the next verse he says, this is about the niyam. Sa jatiye parvah cha vijatiye tiraskriti niyamaha hi paranandah niyamat kriyate budhe. Sa jatiye parvah. Parvah means like a flow, a continuous flow of the same kind of thought. That is a sajatiye parvah. Cha means and, vi jatiye triskriti. Triskriti means rejection. The rejection of all that is foreign to it. So that means which is opposite to it. Niyama, niyama. He means verily, paranandaha, the supreme bliss. Niyamat, regularly. Kriyate is practiced. Buddhai, by the wise. So to maintain a continuous flow of thoughts of the same species, by rejecting the influx of all dissimilar thought currents, is called niyam, which is a great bliss or blissful experience. This is regularly practiced by the wise. And we are familiar with Patanjali's definition of niyam also, which consists of external and internal purification, shauch, contentment, santosh, penance, tap, study of the scriptures, swadhyay, and Ishwar pranidhan, worship of God, surrender to God. But watch for the way of description in this verse though. Because if you just look at it casually, there's a very unfamiliar uniqueness. But when we reflect upon it again, upon the significance, or perhaps when we practice it in ourselves a little, all of a sudden a secret understanding opens up to us. The condition described, we will find that all the 5 factors which have been enumerated by Patanjali, they become fulfilled in us without our conscious effort. All those 5, shauch, santosh, tap, swadhyay, ishwar pranidhan. So to maintain in our mind an unbroken flow of similar thoughts upon the nature of the changeless infinite self. Unbroken thought. We got to stop the dissimilar thoughts. Because these dissimilar thoughts, they come from this Maya, this pluralistic world. They rush inside our mind, they disturb us. The silence which we create with our sadhana, the dissimilar thoughts, they disturb that silence. Mind which we are making peaceful, It is called niyam. In other words, a state of dynamic quietude in the mental level. Niyam. That's the reason we want purification. That's the reason we want to have a contentment. That is the reason we go through the tapa. That is the reason we study the scriptures. And that is the reason why we want to surrender to God. We want that quietude. When a sadhak's mind has come to steadily get lost in the contemplation upon the Atma or Paramatma, it is, you can call it that it has been established in a niyama. So let me go back to that direct definition. To maintain a continuous flow of thoughts of the same species by rejecting the influx of all dissimilar thought currents. Okay, the species over here really means you're thinking, you're supposed to think about God. All this is Brahma, and some other thoughts come in there. We got to reject that. That is called Niya. And that is a great blissful experience. And this is regularly practiced by the wise. Regularly. Now the next one, Tyag. Abandonment. Tyagaha prapancha rupasya chid atmatva avalokanath Tyaga hi mahatam pujyah sadhyah mokshmayah yatah. Tyag means abandonment. Prapancha rupasya, of the illusory universe. Prapancha. Chid atmat avalokanath, realizing it as the all-conscious self. Tyagaha, renunciation. He means verily. Mahatam, of the great. Pujyaha, honored. Sadhyaha, immediately. Mokshmaya, of the nature of liberation. Yataha, because. Real renunciation or tyag. Always so respectfully. That's what pujya means. Honored by the noble sages is the rejection of the illusory universe. On realizing that the universe is nothing but the Atma, the pure consciousness. Just remember, just abandoning the wealth, home, job, our family members is not true renunciation. Running away from our duties is not a true renunciation. On awakening from a dream, when a person realizes that all he had experienced in the dream was all nothing, but the waking mind only, then the waker's attitude of disinterest towards what he had possessed, what he had perceived around him in his dream state, is true renunciation. So in other words, when we get up from a dream, whether the dream was a good dream or it was a nightmare, when we are awakened, we can renounce that very easily. A wise person will say it was just a dream. I don't need to brood over it. If you saw yourself as a queen in the dream, you cannot just tell everybody when you are wakeful that you are a queen. Treat me like a queen. No, that will be absurd. So over here, this Rishi is insisting that on realizing that all this that we perceive, feel, and think as objects, emotions, and thoughts It's just a play in the pure consciousness. Then that person totally gets disinterested in this Maya. Because it is an unreal. It's like an unreal perceptions, and he can renounce easily. So this kind of a mental state of total renunciation is painless. And it's very natural. And that's why he said it's respectfully honored by the noble sages everywhere. And a person who has awakened will have no interest in the objects of pleasure or power, whether it's from a dream or whether a person is truly awakened. Because you are awakened to the supreme state of pure consciousness. It's almost like an explosion of the realization of the illusoriness of this Maya or this pluralistic world. So the sages, they give it up in a very true and enduring and a joyous state of renunciation. It's not being snatched from them. It's almost like when a child is done with the toys, we'll give it to somebody else who needs it, who's younger, who doesn't have much. That is not a snatching away from a child. The same way, when we have grown to that level, we can just renounce it. The whole Maya. Then in the next one, he talks about Maunam. This is number 4 out of those 15. Yataha vachaha nirvatante aprapye manasah yat maunam yogi bhi gamyam tat bhavet sarvada buddha. Yata, from which? Vachaha, words. Nirvatante, turn back. Aprapye, without reaching. Manasaha, saha. Manasa is the mind, saha means with. So with the mind. Yat means which? Maunam, silence. Yogi bhi, by the yogis. Gamyam, attainable. Tat means that, bhavet, should be. Sarvada, always. Buddha, the wise one. The wise sage should ever remain in that silence. Maun. From which mind, along with speech, returns without comprehending it. And this state of silence within can be attained by the yogis. It's a deep level of silence. So that means a seeker, a man of realization, remains in that inner silence, which is a state beyond the senses and even their perceptions, beyond the mind, beyond its emotions, and beyond the intellect or even thoughts. So the term silence used here is not the inert silence of a sleep or the silence of the graveyard. It's not that silence. This is a state of consciousness which is beyond the realm of the ego. So the experiencer of the pluralistic world of finite things and beings is called the ego. It's beyond that. So this state is indicated in our Upanishads. Like that from which the sensibilities of the mental faculties pantingly return without ever comprehending it. So that means our senses, our mind, our intellect, they really cannot comprehend this level of silence. Because they are all made out of Maya. That's all Prakriti. No matter how sharp our intellect is, that is still Prakriti. So that's what Upanishads say, that from which the sensibilities and the mental faculties pantingly return without ever comprehending it. So that's why when we meditate, we tell ourselves, I want to transcend all this. We tell ourselves again and again, I am not the body. I'm not the mind. I'm not the intellect. I am the Atma, which is part of Paramatma. This is what we need to experience. So if all our outer and inner instruments of knowledge and they are totally incompetent to reach and become aware of it, question comes, is this a state unattainable then? Because to a ordinary person, it will seem like, yeah, because we see with these senses, we understand things with our intellect. So if we can't even use these instruments, but over here in this verse, this great Rishi is telling us, he is almost comforting us by saying that this state of silence can be attained by seekers through yoga. See, the wise sage should ever remain in that silence, maunam, from which mind along with speech returns without comprehending it. And this state of silence within can be attained by yogis. So that's why we practice yoga. We want to reach there. We want to feel that blissful experience. That is our nature, the bliss. And he's telling us, how can we do it? So, maunam. Next couple of verses also talk about this maunam little bit more. So verse number 8 and 9 together we'll look at. Number 8 says, Vachaha yasmat nirvatante tat vaktum ken shakyate parpanchaha yadi vaktavyaha sa api shabad vivarjitaha. Vacha, words. Yasmat, from which. Nirvatante, turn back. Tat means that. Vaktum, to be described. Ken means by whom. Shakyate is possible or is capable. Prapanchaha, phenomenal world. Prapanch. Panch means five. This whole world, the material world, manifested world, created with those five elemental forces. Prapanch. Yadi means if, vaktavya, to be spoken of. Sa api, even that. Shabad vivarjita, beyond words. And next one, iti va tat bhavet maunam satam sahaj sangitam gira maunam tu balanam paryuktam brahma vadibhi. Iti va, or this. See, va means or, iti means this. Tat means that, bhavet is. Maunam, silence. Satam, among the men of wisdom. Sahaj Sangitam, called natural. Gira, by speech. Maunam, silence. Tu means whereas. Balanam, for children. Paryuktam, ordained. Brahmavadi by the teachers of truth. Who can describe that? That means the self. From which words return? Because in the previous verse, he said the words return. Words cannot speak. Mind cannot comprehend. They return. So who can describe that self from which words return? If the phenomenal world of polarity were to be described, that too is beyond words. When we look at the nature outside, don't we go, whether it's a vastness of the ocean or the sky or all these natural phenomena which happen, we cannot describe it fully. So he says, if the phenomenal world of polarity were to be described, that too is beyond words. This is another definition of silence, which is natural to all men of wisdom. The gross silence by restraining speech is prescribed for the ignorant by the teachers of Brahma. So if we say we don't want to speak at all, he says that is children's play. That's not a wise people manam. Because when a master lives in that state of consciousness, it is beyond words. That's why it's indescribable. And again, even if he could use his power of speech to describe this world, the words are not competent to describe it. But on the other hand, to the wise, this world has no existence. A wise person will say this is asat. Because according to the wisdom, sat is only which is present in the past, present, and future, which doesn't change. That is sat. So this world to the wise has no existence. It's asat. And to the ignorant, it alone has existence. Because ignorant will say that, no, this does exist. I see it right now. So we cannot assert that it is asat, nor can we prove that it is asat. So it's beyond sat and asat. It has only a relative reality as a dream. When we are dreaming, it does seem real to us. To a dreamer, dream is real. To the ego, while in the jiva state, this maya, this world of polarity, has a reality. But when a person wakes up, awakened person, a realized person, this does not exist. This is asat. There is a Mandukya Upanishad. It's beautifully argued in that beautiful scripture. Like if the world of polarity, prapanch, has existence, it should be available even in sleep. And it's not. Therefore, it has no absolute existence. We cannot say that the world is non-existent because it is fully experienced by the waker's mind. So that's how they argue back and forth in that. It's actually called Mandukya Karika. So it can neither be described as existing nor as non-existing. It is only an illusion having only perhaps a relative reality. So when we realize this fact, the wise comes to a state which is called silence. And in this inner pure silence is the very nature of the self, so natural, sahaj for the wise. And this is real Maun. No churning in the mind, no doubt. That is Maun. Because the grosser, suffocating silence through restraining the speech, sure, it's useful in the beginning. It is just a very elementary exercise prescribed for the extroverted seekers. Guru will say, practice this Maun of the speech also every day for a few hours. But the real Maun, which is talking about, that is altogether different. And that's what he's describing over here. So today we looked at Maun, then we looked at the Yam, the Niyam, and the Tyag. The first four. So next week we will look at the Desh, Kal, Asan, Moolbandh, or maybe one or two more. But I sent you the verses only up to this point. So let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.